Laura sat at the small, worn kitchen table, staring at the stack of bills that seemed to grow taller every day. The faint light from the single bulb above flickered, casting shadows on her tired face. She could hear the muffled sound of Ryan's voice from his room upstairs, excitedly discussing his business plans over the phone with a potential investor. The pride she felt for her son was immense, but it was laced with a deep, gnawing worry. Her hand trembled as she picked up the first bill from the pile. Another loan payment was due, and the balance in her bank account was dwindling dangerously low. Laura had taken on debt after debt, determined to provide Ryan with the funds he needed to launch his startup. She had never told him, of course. Ryan was full of ambition and dreams. She didn't want him burdened by the reality of what it had cost her. With a sigh, Laura reached for her checkbook, knowing she would have to make yet another minimum payment, just to keep the creditors at bay for a little longer. As she scribbled down the amount, the door to Ryan's room creaked open, and he appeared in the doorway, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom, you won't believe it," Ryan said, rushing over to her. "The investor I've been talking to wants to put in a huge amount of capital. This is it. This is the breakthrough I've been waiting for." Laura forced a smile, pushing her worry deep down inside. "That's wonderful, Ryan. I'm so proud of you." Ryan barely noticed her expression, too caught up in his own triumph. "I'll finally be able to get things really rolling. No more scrimping or struggling. We'll be on top, Mom. I promise." Laura nodded, but her heart ached. She wanted to tell him everything, the sacrifices she had made, the debts she had taken on, but she knew she couldn't. Ryan's confidence was soaring, and the last thing she wanted was to drag him down with her financial troubles. Instead, she asked, "Have you thought about what you'll do once the business takes off?" Ryan's eyes lit up even more. "I've got big plans, Mom. Expanding the brand, maybe even opening offices in other cities. This is going to change everything." Laura hesitated for a moment, then ventured, "And what about us? You'll still need your family, won't you?" The question seemed to catch Ryan off guard. He hesitated, looking at his mother as if seeing her for the first time in months. "Of course, Mom. But, I'll be busy traveling meeting new people. I'll still visit, though," he added quickly. Laura smiled, though her chest tightened. "Just don't forget where you came from, Ryan." "Never," he replied, but his gaze was already drifting away, lost in the visions of his future success. Weeks passed, and as Ryan's business continued to grow, so did the distance between him and Laura. He began spending more time away from home, meeting with investors, networking with influential people. Laura watched as her son transformed, his modest wardrobe replaced with designer suits, his conversations filled with talk of wealth and status. One evening, after yet another business trip, Ryan returned home and dropped a bombshell. "Mom, I've been thinking," he said, his tone almost rehearsed. "I'm going to move out. The business is really taking off, and I think it's time I got my own place, closer to the city." Laura's heart sank. "But Ryan, you don't need to go yet. We've been doing fine here. You're just getting started. Why rush into such a big change?" Ryan looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "It's not just that, Mom. I'm planning on moving in with some colleagues. It's closer to the investors, the market, and, to be honest, it's better for my image." "Your image?" Laura repeated, confusion and hurt flashing across her face. Ryan sighed, avoiding her gaze. "Mom, look, I'm really grateful for everything you've done, but people don't understand why I still live here. They judge, I need to be around people who are on the same level, who get it." Laura felt like the wind had been knocked out of her. "So you're embarrassed by me," she said quietly. "It's not like that," Ryan insisted, but the look in his eyes betrayed him. I can't have my past holding me back. You understand, right?" Laura's hand gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. "I don't know, Ryan. I don't know if I do." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "This is a good thing, Mom. For both of us. You'll see." The next morning, Laura woke up to find Ryan's room empty. The closet was bare, his belongings packed and gone. He had left a note on the kitchen table, thanking her for everything and promising to visit soon. Laura stared at the note, her vision blurring with tears. But as the tears fell, a cold determination settled in her chest. She couldn't let Ryan walk away without knowing the truth. She had sacrificed everything for him. Her savings, her security, her peace of mind. And now he was leaving her behind, as if she were nothing more than a stepping stone to his success. She picked up the phone and dialed a number she had hoped never to call. It was time to confront the debts she had buried so deep, and the people who had helped her bury them. The voice on the other end answered. "Miss Harper, what can I do for you?" Laura took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you about the loans. I can't keep up with the payments anymore." There was a pause. "You know what that means, don't you?" Laura nodded, even though the person on the other end couldn't see her. "Yes. But I'm ready. I need to protect what's left." "Very well. I'll be in touch." As she hung up the phone, Laura felt a mixture of fear and resolve. She had tried to shield Ryan from the truth, but now it was time for her to face it. She wouldn't let the sacrifices she had made be in vain. And if Ryan thought he could simply walk away, he was sorely mistaken. In the quiet of her kitchen, Laura began to plan her next move. She might have been just a mother to Ryan, but she had her own strength, her own determination. And she wasn't about to let her son forget that. The days after Ryan's departure were filled with an oppressive silence. Laura moved through the house like a ghost, the echo of Ryan's laughter and the remnants of their life together haunting every corner. She had never imagined that success would drive such a wedge between them, turning her son into a stranger who saw her as a burden rather than the bedrock of his achievements. But as much as it hurt, Laura knew she couldn't afford to dwell on her grief. The phone call she had made, the one she had dreaded for so long, had set things in motion. She was running out of time. One evening, as she was sifting through the latest stack of bills, a knock at the door startled her. Laura's heart raced as she approached, her mind jumping to the worst possible scenarios. The debts had been growing, and she feared the consequences that were bound to come. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to find a tall, well-dressed man with a stern expression standing on her porch. "Miss Harper?" the man asked, his voice as cold as his demeanor. "Yes," Laura replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The man handed her an envelope. "This is a final notice. You've missed several payments, and your accounts have been flagged. You have 2 weeks to settle your outstanding balance, or we will be forced to take further action." Laura's hands trembled as she took the envelope, her mind spinning. "But I just need more time. My son's business is taking off. He'll help me once he knows." The man's expression didn't soften. "I'm afraid that's not our concern, Miss Harper. If you cannot pay, the matter will be taken to court. You could lose your home." The weight of his words hit her like a ton of bricks. Laura nodded numbly, watching as the man turned and walked away. She closed the door and leaned against it, her knees threatening to give out. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks to find a way out of this mess. The next day, Laura decided to visit Ryan at his new office, hoping to explain everything and ask for his help. She had been reluctant to burden him with her problems, but now she had no choice. She arrived at the sleek downtown building where Ryan's company had set up shop. The bustling energy of the city, a stark contrast to the quiet desperation she felt inside. As she entered the lobby, Laura was struck by how polished and professional everything seemed. Ryan had truly built something remarkable, and for a moment pride swelled in her chest. But that pride quickly gave way to anxiety as she approached the receptionist. "Hi, I'm here to see Ryan Harper. I'm his mother," Laura said, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist smiled politely. "One moment, please." She picked up the phone and dialed Ryan's extension. After a brief conversation, she hung up and looked at Laura with a hint of discomfort. "I'm sorry, Miss Harper, but Mr. Harper is in a meeting. He's asked that you make an appointment if you'd like to see him." Laura blinked in surprise. "An appointment? I'm his mother." The receptionist's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, but those are Mr. Harper's instructions." Feeling a mix of hurt and disbelief, Laura turned away and left the building. Ryan had always been busy, but this was different. He was shutting her out, keeping her at arm's length, just like he had done when he moved out. As she walked back to her car, Laura's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, hoping it was Ryan calling to apologize or explain. Instead, it was a text from one of her creditors, reminding her of the payment deadline. The knot in her stomach tightened. Later that evening, as Laura sat in her dimly lit living room, the sense of isolation weighed heavily on her. She had never felt so alone. Her son, the one she had sacrificed so much for, was slipping away from her. And now, the financial burden she had taken on to support him was threatening to destroy everything she had left. A thought began to form in her mind, one that made her feel sick to her core. What if Ryan didn't want to help her? What if he saw her debts as a liability, something that could ruin his carefully crafted image? The more she thought about it, the more she realized how easily Ryan had distanced himself from her modest lifestyle. It was as if he was ashamed of where he came from, ashamed of her. The doorbell rang, jolting Laura from her thoughts. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment fear gripped her. But when she opened the door, she was met with a familiar face. A woman from her past who she hadn't seen in years. "Laura, it's been a long time," the woman said, her voice warm but with an undercurrent of concern. "Katherine." Laura was taken aback. Katherine had been a close friend during her younger years, but they had lost touch over time. "What are you doing here?" Katherine stepped inside, her expression serious. "I heard about your situation. We need to talk." Laura led her to the kitchen, where they sat at the table. The years had changed both of them, but there was still a bond between them that time hadn't erased. "I'm sorry to show up like this, but I'm worried about you," Katherine said, her eyes full of sympathy. "I heard about the loans, the debts, and Ryan." Laura sighed, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. "It's a mess, Katherine. I don't know what to do." Katherine leaned in, lowering her voice. "There's something you need to know about Ryan. He's not just distancing himself from you, Laura. He's been telling people that you're the one who mismanaged your finances. He's making it sound like you're the one who's been irresponsible. Not him." Laura's heart sank. "What? Why would he do that?" "To protect himself, I imagine. He's trying to create a narrative where he's the successful son who had to break away from his mother's poor decisions. He's using your debts to justify cutting ties with you." Laura felt tears welling up in her eyes. The betrayal cut deeper than anything she had imagined. "I sacrificed everything for him, Katherine. Everything." "I know," Katherine said, reaching out to hold Laura's hand. "But you can't let him ruin your life because of his ambition. You need to protect yourself." The words echoed in Laura's mind, igniting a spark of determination she hadn't felt in a long time. She had spent years putting Ryan's needs before her own, but now it was time to take control of her own life. "What do I do?" Laura asked. Katherine squeezed her hand. "You fight back. Don't let him take everything from you. There are ways to get out of this, but you need to be smart. And most importantly, you need to stop protecting Ryan." Laura nodded. She wasn't going to let Ryan destroy her life. Not after everything she had done for him. She had been a mother, but now she needed to be a survivor. As Katherine outlined a plan, Laura listened carefully. It was time to stop being the sacrificial lamb and start taking back what was hers. She had 2 weeks to turn things around, and she wasn't going to waste a single day. Laura began to put Katherine's plan into action. She contacted her creditors, negotiating new terms and consolidating her debts. She sold off what little valuables she had, determined to raise enough money to buy herself more time. It wasn't easy, but she could feel the tide slowly turning. But the real challenge lay ahead, confronting Ryan. She knew it would be painful, but she had to make him understand the consequences of his actions. She wasn't just going to roll over and let him walk away from everything she had done for him. Finally, the day came she called Ryan, who answered with a tone that was polite but distant. "Mom, what's up?" "Ryan, we need to talk," Laura said, her voice firm. "I'm coming to your office." "Fine. But I don't have much time." She wasn't sure how this confrontation would end, but she knew she had to stand her ground. Laura's mind raced with thoughts of everything that had led to this moment. The sacrifices, the secrets, the debts, and now the truth. She had always been there for Ryan, but now she needed to be there for herself. When she arrived at the office, she walked in with her head held high, determined not to let Ryan intimidate her. She was met with the same receptionist. "Mr. Harper is expecting you." She found him sitting behind a large, modern desk, looking every bit the successful entrepreneur. Mom, what's going on? Ryan asked, his tone impatient. Laura closed the door behind her and took a seat. She looked at her son, seeing the man he had become, the man she had helped him become. But there was no pride in her eyes now, only resolve. Ryan, we need to talk about the debts, Laura began, her voice steady. The ones I took on to fund your business. Ryan's expression darkened. Mom, I told you. I'm doing everything I can to. No, Ryan, Laura interrupted, her voice firm. You're not listening. I'm drowning in debt because I wanted you to succeed. I never told you because I didn't want you to worry, but now I'm at risk of losing everything. I didn't ask you to do that, Mom. I've worked hard to get where I am. And I've worked hard too, Laura shot back, her eyes narrowing. But you're not taking responsibility. You're using my sacrifices as an excuse to distance yourself from me. You're ashamed of where you came from. And you're trying to rewrite the story to make yourself look better. I'm not ashamed, I'm trying to move forward, Mom. I need to be around people who understand the business world, who won't remind you of the cost, Laura finished for him. But you can't erase the past, Ryan. And you can't erase me. The tension in the room was thick, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan looked away, his expression hardening. So what do you want, Mom? Money. You want me to pay off your debts. I want you to acknowledge what I've done for you. I want you to stop pretending that you built this all on your own. And most of all, I want you to be the son I raised, the one who knows the value of family and sacrifice. Ryan's face softened for a brief moment, but then it hardened again. I appreciate what you did, Mom, but I can't let it hold me back. I'm building something big here, something that could change our lives. But I need to do it my way. Laura felt a pang of sadness, but she knew she had to accept the truth. Ryan had made his choice and now she had to make hers. Then I'll do what I have to do, Laura said quietly, standing up. But remember this, Ryan. Success built on lies and betrayal will never last. And when it all comes crashing down, you'll realize what you've lost. Without another word, Laura turned and walked out of the office, leaving Ryan to sit alone with his thoughts. As she stepped out into the bustling city streets, Laura felt a strange sense of peace. She had faced her fears, confronted the truth, and now she was ready to move forward, on her own terms. The future was uncertain, but Laura knew one thing for sure. She would no longer be defined by her sacrifices. It was time to reclaim her life and start a new chapter, one where she was the author of her own destiny. Katherine felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she helped Laura fight back. She couldn't stand the thought of Laura losing everything after all the sacrifices she'd made. Taking on loans and debts to finance Ryan's business, risking so much for a son who repaid her by spreading lies about her financial irresponsibility. It infuriated Katherine, and she was determined to help Laura overcome this betrayal. As Laura implemented the plan Katherine had devised, she slowly began to turn things around. Katherine, ever resourceful, also had ideas to generate much-needed additional income for Laura. Their rekindled friendship, once one of the strongest bonds in Katherine's life, felt as if it had never faltered, even after years apart. But it gnawed at Katherine how Ryan had treated his mother, going so far as to tarnish her reputation to protect his own. Katherine knew that Ryan had pressured his mother for financial support, never intending to repay her, and it was time he faced consequences for his actions. Katherine wasn't content to simply watch from the sidelines. She devised a plan to give Ryan a taste of his own medicine. It wasn't difficult to find allies. Ryan's aggressive and arrogant business style had already earned him plenty of enemies. With a carefully orchestrated effort, Katherine and her newfound partners began to expose Ryan's true colors. As the truth of how Ryan had used his mother, and then maligned her to justify cutting ties became public, opinion swiftly turned against him. Investors pulled back, and his reputation began to crumble. In a desperate bid to salvage his image, Ryan proposed a grand gesture. He would publicly take on his mother's debts, trying to spin the narrative in his favor. But Laura, having rediscovered her strength, refused to let him make her part of a spectacle. She rejected his attempt to use her for a public show, standing firm in her newfound independence. For the first time in years, without the weight of loans and debts crushing her, Laura felt a lightness she had forgotten was possible. Though she had lost her son, she gained something far more valuable: A future filled with comfort, companionship, and the promise of happiness, thanks to Katherine and the others who had come to her aid. If you enjoyed this intense and emotional story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think.